want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everybody for coming. It was a rare honor to be a student of Abraham Liu, and he was 102 years old when he died. First thing I thought he was 100, but according to Jamie and his family, he was 102. So what a miracle. I also want to honor Jane Liu, who's also close to passing. So while in a certain sense this is a twofer, but she's still alive, so we're not going to bury her yet. The basic format is for people to come up and speak 3 to 5 minutes, and when everybody's had a chance, then we'll flow the short form. You can remember it?
No.
I watched the video yesterday.
We'll follow you.
And yeah, no, we'll follow Chris. And then everyone's welcome to come to the Taoist Sanctuary for a reception. Jamie has put together a video presentation of Abraham over the years, so we'll have that going and some snacks and that type of thing. So at this point, I want to just call Chris up, and then maybe Carl and Kip and some others from there, and we'll just do it.
Hey. If you're really, if you're not, no, it's up. We worked it. If you're not good at projecting, try this. If you do it like right on your mouth and straightforward. So I don't know. I guess I'll stand here. When hearing, that Abraham had, was in the process of passing and getting near that point, it was that was interesting. It was very challenging for me, obviously, for most of you, and I hadn't seen him in a number of years, so it sort of prompted me to write a letter to him for them to read to him in his last days there or whatever. And what I realized in writing that letter was that this person had been a greater influence on my life, on everything I've done in my life, on who I am. I mean, every aspect of me and what I've done more than anyone other than my two parents. And it was really interesting to kind of really take a look at that and notice how much effect that it had on me. I'm absolutely sure that I would not be anywhere near the person I am right now, that I would not have accomplished the things that I've done. There's just no question about it. No question about it. And that to realize that was really powerful for me. And so I just want to say that this man influenced so many people that we know, and probably some of you feel the same way, or to varying degrees feel the same way as what I just mentioned right there. But I do know that for me, that wow, really an amazing effect. And so I owe my life and whatever I've done and who I am and my children and so on very much to this man. So I can't say anything more about it. It's more important. It's beautiful that he's been able to influence thousands of people through his direct influence to all of you, through his indirect influence through Bill and myself and Kip and so on, and the people we've taught around the world. And I think that his energy has been that strong in each of us, really got transferred out to the people that we connected with. And many of us have students that teach all over the world, and I think that they've really passed that on too. I think it's been that strong in energy. So that's all I really want to say. I'm going to turn that over to Kip where he is.
Sitting down here low. So, just as Chris says, and as Bill had said, Abraham definitely influenced my life a great deal. And it's nice to see that generations later, we're still doing the same thing. So we're passing this on, his legacy, will live for a long time, I'm sure. And you know, I remember when I started with Abraham, it was in the early 80s, and this guy was already over 65, 66 years old probably. And we started doing push hands, and I'll never forget, my back is imprinted into the wall down in Allen's schools, because we'd do push hands and he would just constantly push me into this wall. And at that age, I thought that was pretty impressive. But he just had this air about him. He was truly a master. I trained in Asia, and in my early days in karate, and when I came here, he really was the real deal, and that's why I started with Abraham and stayed with him all those years. And when he moved up north, it was kind of sad. We didn't get to see him quite as often, but we would go up every now and then, some of us. And I was fortunate enough, I guess, to see him when he was 99. We went up for his birthday. Some of us went up, took him out to lunch, and I will tell you, he was walking upright. His mind was still good. He was really fit, and that's a testimonial for Tai Chi, I think, in itself. So keep going, keep doing what we're doing, and that's all I've got. Thanks.
Bill is touching you. What does that mean? Means I got to go and talk, I guess. You know, at one point, as many of you know, at the Taoist Sanctuary down here, we had 3 Lius. Cher Liu, Abe Liu, and Yorkwai Liu. Really remarkable. More Lius in one place than any place other than China, probably. And all of them, someone mentioned about the presence, you know, he definitely, all of them had a presence. And to this day, I can definitely feel Abe's presence. You know, I used to go watch him when he would teach at Balboa Park in Los Angeles. And then when I opened my school, he came and did some seminars there. And, you know, as you know, he was a general. To be a general, you better have some kind of presence. Because you've got truth that you have to command. But I think because of his Tai Chi and just his just very comforting nature, it was always a pleasure to be in that man's presence. You felt like you were becoming a better human being, just breathing the same air, you know, in the same room that he inhabited. And so I feel really fortunate to have known that man, and we're all fortunate that he was here for all of us so long, 102 years. This same year, my mother just died a few months ago on Mother's Day at the same age of 102. And so maybe that's the new age that we're all going to be going towards, whether we want to or not. And I think that every time we sit and do Tai Chi, I think it will be really helpful just to kind of hold the image of Abe and his just really integrated presence in your consciousness, and that I know will help your performance, and more important, help your heart, help your spirit, because he had a big heart. So thank you, and thank you, Abe, wherever you are.
Okay, so we have a theme here. The role that this man has played in our lives, and me too. I moved to San Diego 2 years after he did, so I was really good. And aside from the Tai Chi skills that he taught so ably, I loved Abraham. I know you all do too. That's why we're here. I love the fact that he took Tai Chi into his life. That despite being a general, he was a man of peace. And he spoke about his enemies in a peaceful way, always. He had this insatiable thirst for learning. He'd come to class and he'd have a list of words that he'd heard over the weekend. What does this one mean? And what does this one mean? And why is this one different from this one? Or sports terms. Oh, I watch basketball. Liquid hands. We need liquid hands. Stuff like that. His subtle ways of teaching, like one day telling me what's wrong with your face when you do Tai Chi? You know, if your face isn't relaxed, you're not relaxed. I said, okay. So I went and had a private with him, and I was shaky because I'm performing in front of the master, and I thought, at least my face is going to look good. And I finish up, and he goes, why are you angry? Wonderful, Jane. I had the opportunity of visiting him a lot. I would do seminars for my continuing education up there, so I was there many, many times. He taught me how to play mahjong. We discussed politics. He was just open, transparent. He was Tai Chi that way too. He would tell stories about himself. He wouldn't be afraid. I phoned him up one day to arrange for a lesson. He goes, "Oh, Ted, I miss you." And I was like, I almost started crying over the phone. You know, it's like, wow, he's just like open like that. Told us a story one day about already living up north, how he went over to friends to play mahjong and then declined a taxi ride back. I walked not far. Halfway, 94 degrees outside, he fainted. Some passers-by came, 9/11, the whole thing. So as we were going to lunch, he said, "You remind me, I'll tell you a story about this spot right here." On the way back, we stopped, and he describes the whole thing, and it's like, foolish, why I do, I don't know. You know, that kind of openness was just wonderful in his part. So along with all of you who've already shared the influence that he's had, me too. Love Abraham, love Jane, and that all unites us to that kind of love.
I know most of you, and I know him really well. I arrived in San Diego in 1976, and the day that I arrived, there was a Tai Chi class down at the school. And after the class, I went up to the man who was organizing it, Bill, and I said, "Does he teach push hands class?" And he said, "No." He said, "I'll ask him if he wants to try one." So he did. And 4 of us were in his push hands class, which I don't know if it was just push hands. I think it was a class in learning to be centered, learning to be gently humiliated. But it was amazing to have so much time with him over and over again. His standard was beyond mention. We would practice every day virtually in the park, and every time we'd see him, we always were told how much more we could practice and how much the other masters were doing, I think 3,000 forms a day, something like that, and we weren't doing anywhere near that. But he had a special one for me that was so endearing. I was a gymnast in college, and when I got here, it wasn't that far after. I still have a leftover gymnast body. But when we'd do push hands, he'd stop for a moment and he'd go, "Concrete." And he'd look me right in the eye, as you know, as calm and peaceful as he always was, and he'd say, "You been to the gym today?" And I'd look him in the eye as calm and peacefully as I could be, and I'd say, "No, Abraham, it's been 10 years. Because I hadn't been to the gym in 10 years. I wanted to do something less than crazy Western athletics. But every time we'd come, he'd slap me on the shoulder and tell me, "Concrete. You been to the gym?" And I'd say, "No, Abraham, it's been 10 years. So when the Taoist Sanctuary was down in North Park where Jody Bahunga's restaurant is, I was walking back to the car with him one day, and this was 5 years after I got here. This was in 1981. And we had been doing Tai Chi over and over again, as much practice as possible. And he turned to me and he gave me a compliment. 3 words. That compliment meant more to me than anything I'd ever done. Any degree I ever had, any accomplishment I'd ever had. and he said, "You're getting something." And that was the first compliment after 5 years of work. Coming from him with his standard and what that meant, I almost feel like that would be something that I would want to have on my tombstone, though I'm going to be cremated. But that was so incredibly valuable to know that in his standard, with a great science of Tai Chi that meant so much more than an exercise system, a way of life, a way of peace, a way of centering, that this man thought that I had accomplished something. And that felt like it was a great honor to get those 3 words. He was a role model, like everyone who's said up here, of being centered, Tai Chi, centered, balanced. And in all the years that I knew him, I don't remember one time that I saw him get off center. He might have, but it never showed up in my experience. And that was so incredibly amazing to keep remembering how it's like possible to live a life of just peacefulness, calmness. I was so disappointed. I wanted to go see him before he passed on. I didn't. I had a whole list of questions of like, how'd you do that, Abraham? How can I achieve that? Because there was one time that his push hands, I could never do anything against his push hands. And that was this thing most people said. The one thing that really impressed me, and I never forget, and I tell this story about Tai Chi and what it really is, that idea of grounding and rooting. We were right over there because we practiced in the morning in the park for how long? I don't know, a long time. And you probably remember this, the time that he was working with us, and we were doing 2-man processes, and then there's a process of leaning forward, and so obviously we weren't living up to his standard. So he said, he's standing here and calm and peaceful, just like in the photo. And so he's saying, push. I've got my shoulder in his belly. My mind is saying, I don't care who you are, I got really strong legs, and you're going over. And he's standing there, and so, in all due respect to him, because I loved him dearly, I gave him a little nudge. And he looks down at me and he says, no, you push. I thought to myself, want to fall over? Sure. So I went, all right, we're going to launch him, right?
Nothing.
Meanwhile, he's talking to me. Come on, you push. It was like supernatural to me. And I know that Bill did the same thing and didn't budge him, and that was even more impressive. But I, like everyone who has come here, felt that this man changed my life. I had a lot of time with him, and I didn't have a good relationship to my father. So he ended up being the father that I always wanted in many, many ways. And,
I'm going to get up and say something else I just thought of. Since nobody else was jumping. Because the first one, I wasn't ready. The first one was really probably the most important. But just to talk about him a little bit, as Bill mentioned, we sort of started, I don't know, there, here, somewhere on this grass right here in 1974, and out in the sun because there's no trees here. And I remember, gosh, about 3 or 4, Bill would remember this minute, Carl, those of us who started, Chinese martial arts, way back when, a lot of it was very traditional, the way it was being brought over, and we took it sort of seriously that way. I mean, we took all that stuff seriously, whether we were doing our Hindu meditation or whatever it was. And there was this culture of like, you don't ask a teacher, you don't ask questions because it implies that you're doubting your teacher's knowledge or their judgment on whether you should have that knowledge at this point. And so I didn't, for years, I was like, I didn't really ask any questions. And I finally got up the guts to ask a question one time. And I think it took me, a month or two of mulling it over. And then I was, working with him down at his house, and I said, and I kind of was really nervous. I said, so I've heard about this thing, about breathing or something. Could we do that? And I was like, oh my God, I hope everything goes okay. And he looks at me and he goes, sure, why not? Like that. And it was this feeling like, what the hell took you so long to ask? And I was like, okay, I feel kind of stupid. Yeah, okay, great. And that sort of, exemplified a lot of his energy. And I remember a year or so later, I don't know, it was like late 70s, somewhere, 79 or something. And I went up to him. Now I had a little more guts to ask questions. I said, I read this article about, or I heard this rumor about some kind of energy work in Tai Chi, right? Because it was a little mysterious back in the 70s, the energy work in Tai Chi, and wasn't quite connected, right? And I said, could you teach me anything about that? And this is I want to really share this because I think this is very important because over that 40-some years, I've worked with a lot of different teachers, a lot of different Chinese masters, and whether it's in Asia or here or wherever. And he did something that I've never seen another teacher do, and that I may never see another teacher do. I said, what about this? I heard about this. Could you teach me something about that? And he looked at me and he said, you know what? He said, I was never taught anything about that. He said, do you think you can find out? I said, well, I heard about this guy in Chicago or somewhere that does this. And he says, can you get there? I said, I think so. And he says, you go get there, find out, and come back and tell me. And holy shit, I was floored. I mean, you may never hear a story like that again. I haven't. And that, and I think Kip was saying this, somebody else was saying, just like, his openness, his naturalness is just presence. I'm just who I am, and here's someone like that. And that, to me, really exemplified it a lot. I was like, wow, okay. Anyway, I just want to share those two stories. I think they say a lot.
My memories of Abraham were most memorable with the camps we would go to up in Laguna. And that would be 8 hours of Tai Chi for 5, 6, 7 days. So you really got the full hit. And the thing that I ponder today is during he'd smoke our legs and then he'd give us a break and tell us a story. And the stories that I really appreciated were the ones that related to the power of yin, how the power of yin would preserve. He would point to a dandelion that was breaking up through the tarmac there where we were practicing, and he would say, "That's the power of yin," and your legs, you could barely stand still, and you're going, "Tell us more," Tell us more, And then finally he'd finish. But today I think about the power of yin and how. I don't know, maybe we're missing out on some of those lessons, it's the power of yielding, the power of being soft, the power of being open, things like this. I just think those are lessons that one can take to heart and would certainly be relevant in today's world as well. And then it was time to get back to work after the stories. You could ask questions and that would delay it a little longer. And then eventually you go, okay, come on, have a good time. And we would get back to it. So anyway, just I was thinking of it the other day, the power of yin, how could I apply that principle? And then, come on, have a good time. Thank you.
Knew that was going to happen. I guess for everybody, I just want to see Kip, Chris, Bill, Barry Green, Ted, for us all being here today and the connection. and everybody who speaks, it resonates in my heart. Like Barry talking about the father I didn't have. He was the father I didn't have. My favorite story with Abraham doing push hands, for 5 years, you're a tiger caught in the net, you're a tiger caught in the net. And after 5 years, I'm like, damn, I'm a tiger caught in the net. Took me forever to understand that. And for my job today, as I am an instructor, and I have a lot of students, and every day when I'm as being in my job, I think about my teacher. I think about Abraham, how he helped raise me. I think about how Bill and Chris and Barry Green and other people and their influences, Kip, how you all made me a better human being too. And I think for me, there are no words that can describe my feelings for Abraham or the stories or anything, but he just made me a better human being. And I think about, what is Abraham thinking right now? And to me, I know what Abraham would say. He says, why you all show up for me? That'd be Abraham. His humility is like, why you all here? You should be home or something like that. That would be Abraham. But the stories just go on forever. I mean, he was so open and the one story, like, I was driving down here, Abraham, we have Ring Wang Yi for the first time, and Abraham goes to me and goes, go find out how powerful Ring Wang Yi is. and I come back to Abraham, I said, I'm so happy I didn't go to the hospital and kick my ass. Because they had Ring Wang Yi grabbing me by my hair and just boom, dropping me on my back. True. And then just like Abraham would always say, go investigate, go find out. And he said, you don't believe it unless you see it. Don't believe it unless you see it. And just all those wisdom of words, and I live by those every single day. And for me, just seeing Chris and everybody here, Barry and Kip, I mean, under these circumstances, it's still special today to be here today with each and every one of you, and I'm grateful. And I was with Abraham from the ages of 73 to 85. We'd do our Tai Chi for an hour, and that guy was relentless. We had to play tennis for 2 hours afterwards. That was the trade-off. We would do Tai Chi for an hour, then it was tennis for the next 2 hours, and my job was to hit the tennis ball out as hard as I could. And if I backed off one time, he says, you could hit it harder. And that's just the way it was. And the same thing, pushing my back against the fence. And so it just reminds me of a lot of good memories of Abraham Liu. And I'm just so grateful that everybody's here. You know, and we all have our own memories of Abraham.
My name is Matt, and I came down with Ted Perpero to study with Abraham and Sifu Cherkhe Liu, Bill, 1979. And I can remember my first class here in the park, and we were like Ben Lowe students and Leslie Williams students, so we had a smaller stance. And I remember Bill coming up and just boom, my leg, ow, you know. Abraham, I kind of think, you know, because Abraham was a large Chinese and Ben was smaller. Ben was really sick when he learned Tai Chi, so he had to really hold posture. And Abraham, just a big Manchurian, just put him out there, you know, larger stances. There's a couple of stories you might not have known. So one time me and Jim Keefner and Ted were studying sword form and Dalu and the long form down at Bonita every week. And we were there at class, and Abraham was always prompt. He'd always be out there doing stuff. And this one day, he wasn't there. We waited. And we finally went to the door. I had enough courage to go to the door. I never went to the door. And nobody answered. I thought, that was weird. So we came back the next week. And what had happened was, on his trip to go visit his kids up in Orange County, he hit somebody at the crossing, the
checkpoint.
The checkpoint. The Mexicans were jumping across. I think he killed him. I'm pretty sure he killed somebody. So the next week, that he kind of explained it, and he was shaken up like anybody would be. We tried towards the end. We brought Cherkhe Liu up there to visit. We knew that would be the last time they'd ever see each other. So me and Ted were expecting kind of something. But it really wasn't something because the Chinese, they have their own way. So in Sifu's mind, Sifu Sheke Liu, he thought Abraham Manchurian, not Han Chinese. And Abraham, I don't know, he might have, they couldn't speak to each other because one was Mandarin, yeah, and Cantonese. So they couldn't speak to each other than English. So we had this kind of tense tea. We were like interjecting little things, and they kind of, but it was good that they saw each other. I'm sure that was the last time they ever saw each other. I went through a cancer difficulty for a few years, and I don't know if Abraham ever knew about it, but I brought my first Tai Chi teacher, Lindsay Williams, to see him. He wanted to connect because we were trying to get Ben Lowe to heal with Abraham. They had a falling out. We never got that going. We tried several times, and so when he saw me, he goes, "You got good chi," and so I said, "Okay, that's great." But I just gone through this cancer thing, and so I felt pretty blessed with that. Anyway, a lot of stories. We all love him. He was great. He was so open to us, and I'm sure he's the last survivor of Cheng Manqing's teaching that learned it in China. I'm sure he learned it as a young man in China. I'm sure nobody is alive today that learned Tai Chi from Cheng Manqing in China.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I first met Abraham Liu in 1985 at Southwestern College. I'd been studying Chinese philosophy, and I had learned that this yin-yang symbol wasn't opposite energies, but a complete energy that was called Tai Chi. And my friend said, "Hey, they have a Tai Chi class." So I went to the class thinking it would be a lecture on Chinese philosophy. And I met Mr. Abraham Liu there. And I went along with the class and was kind of interested. And we got to the point where we were learning single whip, and he said, "Make your hand like a fish hook." And for some reason, my finger was straight like this, and I kept doing it like that. He said, a fish hook, and it kept going straight. And he said, "Okay." And then he told a story about a general in the Chinese army in ancient times who fished with a straight hook and then became emperor of China. He said, "You fish with a straight hook." So for the rest of the semester, I was with a straight hook. And that was his idea. That's your Tai Chi, your energy. And I continued to study with him. I went to the Allen School for a little while behind the bank there in Bonita. And that was the end of my straight hook. But I couldn't complete the form. I went into the Marine Corps and life went on, and I never finished that form. I went and did a lot of Tai Chi at other places, but I never learned that Cheng Manqing form until I came back to San Diego, and Mr. Abraham was 82, 83 years old at that time. And I told him my story, and he said, "Okay." And I said, "I'd like to be your student again." He said, "Okay." And so for the last 15, 20 years of his life, I was his student. And a lot of that was on Chinese philosophy. He was an artillery officer in Chiang Kai-shek's army. He was a World War II veteran in China. He told me some of his stories and experiences there. He taught me calligraphy and philosophy. And it was a lot more about that than it was Tai Chi. But for him, Tai Chi was all of that. And what I loved is whimsical type of humor and open-mindedness and always wanting to learn things. And he would see other people's Tai Chi always very interesting like the energy would come out of them, and that was their personality. And he was delighted with everybody's Tai Chi, whether it was a straight hook or something different. He was just delighted. He had that fascination with life, and it affected me deeply. And I think that his presence has had a ripple effect for all of us. And I met my wife through him, and my daughter's middle name is Abby Liu in his honor. And he's had a profound effect on my life. And I wouldn't be who I am without him. I loved him deeply, and I'm sad that he's gone, but 102 years is a great life. And I am honored and humbled to have been a part of that. And I thank him, and I thank all of you.
Susan. Oh, it's Ted.
All right, I got to say something. You guys already talked?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we did.
Bill, good to see you. How you feeling? Good. All right, great.
Okay, well, let's see. I don't want to be redundant with my stories, but a couple of stories about Abraham. My name's Ted Propero. I came here to San Diego in 1979. I had studied for 2 years already. Well, it seems like Abraham's hanging around.
Enough.
Anyway, okay, just give me a little time. So I came down here to study with two people, with Master Chris Luth, who was opening his teachings at that time. I had an opportunity. He was a Taoist priest monk. That was one of the main reasons I came. And then the other reason was that Abraham Liu was teaching Tai Chi. I knew he was teaching Tai Chi, and I studied with his, I like to call him his Tai Chi brother, Benjamin Lowe, in San Francisco, and his senior student, Lindsay Williams. And it seemed like quite an opportunity to study with another great student of Cheng Manching's. So, because Ben was also a great student of Cheng Manching. And so I came, and it was just such a great opportunity. And then, and what was incredible was getting to know Abraham Liu, Master Abraham. And I was so surprised. He was so articulate. He knew English so well. You know, and he was always curious about English and different words, and so it was very impressive. And early on, you got to know that Abraham was definitely a military man. You know, and as it turned out, 3-star general in the Chiang Kai-shek's Nationalist Army, and what was surprising was as soon as when we started class, the first classes, line up, everybody line up, and it was just like all you needed was to salute, and you were ready to go, And so one story I like to tell was Abraham was pretty crafty in his teachings, and sometimes he didn't know. He'd say things, and he might not be looking at you, but it was for you, And I remember being in this class, and back to Jamie's hook. The one thing that I've noticed in Tai Chi, and you might all agree with this, is that hooks never seem to stay high enough. You might have noticed that. They're always steeping the creep down. So we're in this class, everybody's lined up, and this one student, it's no offense to him or anything, but this hook is down pretty low, And Abraham's telling the class, it's very important that you keep your hook hand high. And this guy's standing, and Abraham's facing him, and he goes, you need to keep your hook hand high. This guy's not doing it. He's not even paying it. He thinks he's got his hook up,
And so Abraham says, you know, I might be talking to you. Facing the guy, you know. So all of a sudden, and then nothing still happens. So Abraham raises his head. Well, first what he used to do is he'd push it down because you're usually so tense, you know. So he pushes the guy's hand down, and then he raises it up. Yeah, now it's higher, like I said, you know. So anyway, that was always kind of funny. But later, at Abraham's 90th birthday, and this was to illustrate how sharp he was with words. And so I told that very story, and he got a laugh out, and I just said, you know, Abraham was so crafty that way. He was very crafty. And all of a sudden, Abraham, he stops me. He goes, crafty? Because he likes words like that. He goes, what's crafty? And I go, oh, well, like a fox. And he goes, oh, and Jane, his wife, is sitting next to him, and he goes, that would be her. So that was great. But another, let's see, I'd like to share another story, but this is about Abraham later in his life. Oh, okay, well, there's one more before that. So after a while, Abraham wasn't teaching at the Taoist sanctuary as much. And, you know, he's kind of semi-retired. But we would go up to his house down in Chula Vista, and then, you know, we'd have class on the form, and he'd knock the crap out. He had, up by this water tower, there was a chain link fence. And everybody knows.
We know it well.
Yeah. And boy, did you get pounded into that chain link fence and doing push hands, you know what I mean? This, why are you so tight? Why are you so tight? Let go. You know, and so then, you know, it was a good workout, and we were coming back down, and he said this most interesting thing to me, and I think it resonates for me because it kind of captures the essence of Tai Chi in terms of, if you really get into Tai Chi Chuan, and I think all these senior students and students in general know this, it's not easy. It's not easy. Do you think it's not easy? Huh? I mean, if you really get into it, between the holding, the postures, and the discipline of doing it every day, and so we're walking down, and he actually kind of put his arm around my shoulder, and we were talking about something, and he said, "You know what, Ted?" He goes, It's not that hard to find a good teacher. And I thought, okay, great, I did, you know, with him, you know. But it's really hard to find good students. And at the time, it seemed like so incongruous. And, and then I keep dwelling on it. I dwelt on it for weeks. And he goes, oh, because I started teaching, and I go, oh, that's right. You know, because the students, they come and they go, you know, oh, Tai Chi's great, I want to do Tai Chi, and then, you know, a week later, month later, 2 years later, they disappear, you know what I mean? And so, you know, he really captured that. But I think it was a compliment to the students that he had, you know what I mean? Because certainly, as we know, just for me, Abraham had a lot of great students, a lot of really great students, and it was my pleasure to practice with them and know them, and work hard with them, you know. So that was a great thing. But now moving forward, because like Jamie was saying, for me, my practice with Ben Lowe, Ben was a strict disciplinarian. You know, he really, you know, body upright, sit down, body upright. But Abraham incorporated more of the wholeness of the Tai Chi experience, and insofar as in doing so of Taoism, you know. And as I got to know Abraham, he was a great exhibitor of Taoist principles, you know. And he even told me one time, we were talking about his time in the military, and because I was always curious, I loved military history in this. And I said, Abraham, like, okay, so you're in the Nationalist Army, you're fighting the communists, you know. I go, when did you realize that it wasn't going to work out? You know what I mean? He goes, you know what, Ted? He goes, there was a moment when I realized, and you know what? They would never fight us directly. They were always lurking around and then surprise us in some. We had this big army, the best army. We were more armed. We were better armed. We had more men. And he goes, you know why? He goes, they would never fight us directly. It was always a guerrilla warfare. They were good, and they were exhibiting Tai Chi principles. You know, and he goes, that's when I saw it, I realized it, and I knew we weren't going to win. You know, at that very moment. As much as patriotic and as fervent I was for the cause, we weren't going to win. And so, you know, he recognized these things because Taoism and Tai Chi were a part of his life. You know, so, but a great, let's say, example or accomplishment in Taoism is longevity and the practice of Tai Chi. They said, Cheng Men-ching said what? If you practice 15 minutes in the morning and the evening, you'll have great health and what? Longevity, right? And to have longevity, even for Master Chris Luth, longevity was prized. It was one of the main principles. Because if you achieved longevity, then that meant that you lived your life in accordance with certain principles that would foment that would accomplish that. So, fast forward, this is must have been 5 years ago. All right. So Abraham probably had to be 97 years old, maybe 98. I'm not sure. It was in the summer, so it's probably 98. And Lindsay came down. Lindsay Williams, my first teacher, came down, and Matt and I, we arranged to go over to see Abraham, you know, hang out, and if you ever went over there in the later years, you had to play mahjong, which was great. It was fun. Mahjong was always fun, and so we played some mahjong, and then it was time to go out. He had his favorite Chinese buffet, right, and that we were going to all have dinner together. It's traditional. Yeah, you've been there, and so we go out, and it's a great dinner. And you know, I'm still amazed how sharp he is. You know, his mind is just great. He's moving a little slower at first, you know, and so then we're driving back after all five of us are in the same car, right? I think Matt was driving. Anyway, so we're driving towards the house, and all of a sudden Jane goes, "We need to go Fresh Easy. We need to go to Fresh Easy, Fresh and Easy, you know, or Easy." She called it Easy Fresh, and so okay, you know, so it's on the way. We pull into the parking lot, and Abraham, he knows what she wants, so he's on the outside, and he goes, "I'll go in and get it. It'll make it faster." And I'm sitting next to him, so I get out and I think, yeah, I better help the old guy out. And oh my God, he gets out of the car. I'm like running to keep up because he's taller than me. I'm going, what? I couldn't believe it. I mean, he's walking around like a 20-year-old, you know, and I can't keep up with him. Literally, he gets the cart. I go, "Do you want me to get?" Nope, and he's just off. And you know, the whole time I chased him around the store, you know. And so it was like, oh my God, you know, what a great example, you know, at that age, to be so agile and robust, you know, and have such great energy. So I'll always be inspired by Abraham Liu. He's just a great teacher and a great exhibitor of Tai Chi principles, and Tai Chi always kind and loving, caring for the students, you know, with whatever was going on with them. And it goes in line with something that I've been thinking about lately. And because also I had the same experience with Ben Lo. Okay. Okay, this is it. Anyway, so, but it's just that, you know, the main principle in Tai Chi is relaxation, right? Relaxation. And it led me to think that if we try to relax every part of our body. One time Ben said it's really important to relax your mind, you know, even, you know what I mean? And so, and I think these guys, Ben, Abraham, students of Cheng Men-ching, they relax their hearts. And what's going to happen when your heart is relaxed? It's open. And that's always how I felt about these teachers, especially Abraham. His heart was as open as the sky. And I think that helped with his longevity too. So that's what I'd like to say about it.
Makes my way up. Bill said this is a twofer. This is about Jane. I was never really a student of Abraham's. I was married to Bill, and all these men were coming and going through our house. Carl was a guest in our house very often. Sifu, Shirke Liu, Bill would go up to pick up Sifu. He would come down for the weekend, and he always said, "Your rice no good." Every time I try to make rice better the next time, he'd say, "Your rice no good." So I think maybe Bill helped this idea percolate, but we decided that Jane would give some cooking classes. So she gave a series of 6 cooking classes, 6 Saturdays in a row in our home. And every Saturday I had the privilege of going to her house to pick her up, and we would get the ingredients for the recipes. She would give me ahead of time, and she would come, and we had about, I don't know, maybe 8 people that came to these classes every Saturday. But what a blessing to learn. And that's got to be 35 years ago, and I actually ended up being a chef, and have been a chef for the last 30 years. And I still remember all these little things that she taught me, these little tricks. And so she was really my first cooking teacher. So that's my Lou story for the day. My rice is better.
Okay, I'm Susan Orlovsky, and my teacher, Bill Helm, challenged me in the late 80s to work with Abraham to do an oral history that we did. It went on for quite a long time. We would meet at his home in Bonita and tape his stories. And we got about 25 sessions done, and thanks to many of the people here, his students helped transcribe it, and we got about 17 of those sessions transcribed, and it's really an amazing document. I'd be happy to share it with you. I brought a couple of copies, but it's not finished, but it's a work in progress. But I guess I've been searching for Tai Chi teachers, and I finally found the Taoist Sanctuary, Bill and Abraham, and finding that was such a breakthrough for me, and it has, the study of Tai Chi is just so precious, and I've learned so much. So thank Abraham, and thank Bill and Allison and all my other teachers today.
I'm going to say one more thing really quickly, because we're actually recording this, because I think this is the last time that this group of people are going to be together, and that these stories will be able to be shared. So I'm really glad that everybody's sharing these stories. And Susan, where did this go? So there may be things on here that may want to become part of that documentation at some point or whatever. And anyway, I'd love to talk with you about that. 2 other really quick stories, since this is the place where we're getting to share these. I remember one time being in, speaking of his military history, being in Maui. I was assisting him in teaching a retreat in 1979, and we were up in the Iao Valley. Anybody been to Iao Valley? Maui? Okay. Anyway, yeah, right. It's this deep, like really steep valley that goes way the hell back up. It's gorgeous, back up in the mountains. And we're way back up there. We're looking out. You can see out like 5 miles out into the valley, and out to the distance. And he goes, "Wow, this reminds me of a valley that I was trapped in with my troops back in whatever it was, right? Trapped in here with my troops, and we had to, and the enemy was out there at the end opening of the valley, and we had to get out through them, and I don't remember the rest of the story, but there was this whole kind of rush of memory. This looks just like the valley I was stuck in, kind of thing like that with my troops. So it's sort of interesting to, to throw those little things out like that. And speaking to his flexibility in his mind and his straight hook story that Jamie told, whatever. I remember being down at his house, somewhere back in the 70s, and doing a 2-person set, doing a dual practice. And I was, that's right. At home, I had looked at some videotape, maybe it was early 80s, because we had videotape of him and Bill doing it. And I remember this one move, seeing him do this one move, and it was just like it looked different than the way that he had taught me or that I was doing it anyway. That I remember him teaching it, and it was bugging me. I was like, man, I'm not doing that right. This is just like I want to do it that way, you know. Well, I just want to do it the right way. And so I went and told him. I said, look, I was looking at this tape and I saw this film and I saw this, and I'm not doing it right, and I want to do it the right way. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, listen, I saw it. I want to do it the right way. The way you, he said, what way? I said, the way you and Bill are doing it. And he goes, okay, well, show me what you're doing. So I went and did it. And he goes, okay, show me again. I did it. He goes, I said, so can you show me the right way? He goes, no, you do it that way. I said, no, I want to learn it the right way. Damn it. He goes, no, you do it that way. No. And he said, look, looks fine. You do it that way. Just leave it, you know. And that was, anyway, it was sort of like that thing of like, yeah, you're the guy with a straight hook. It'll be fine. You know? But I think it was really sort of like you said, Jimmy, it was more like that fits you. And it seems to work. So do it that way, which was a really interesting, approach that not many teachers take. It's like, yeah, that looks like Tai Chi on you. No reason to change that. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting.
So we're going to do the form now. Did you want to say something else, Ted?
No, I'm looking at you to where we're going. Bart, you want to go over?
I think we could just do it right back here.
Right here's good.